without further delay, Gene, let's explore the hidden activities of the Smithsonian Institute.
Well, many people may have seen the movie The Librarian or the series. There's also a series, The Librarian. It's soft disclosure. That's actually there, and not just underneath and in a space folded section as well. It's so massive, the amount of materials they've hidden there, that they also have 14 warehouses as well, just like in Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's all administrated by the Smithsonian. So you look at, there it is, The Librarian, and that's fairly accurate, actually. I mean, they make it kind of fun and humorous, but it's also fairly accurate about what's down there, a lot of the artifacts, the things they have their hands on, etc. So I'm just finishing out working almost through a decode on the Grand Canyon, hidden and ancient Egyptian history, and Mayan pyramids and related secrets of the Grand Canyon. So there's Egyptian pyramids, Mayan pyramids, all kinds of things in the Grand Canyon. And most people do not realize how incredibly, it's like the Grand Central Station for this part of the Western Hemisphere. It's actually not, if you look at that, that's a beautiful rendition of it there. But if you look at it from far away, you can actually see the Grand Canyon was not cut by water action. So if you look at that, that's a electric arc that created that. It's like what you see in electric etching on copper, for example, or any hard material. When Venus, after the destruction of Tiamat, the Earth was a moon called Kingu, and humanity was told to get off Tiamat, get on Kingu, because it would be displaced. They're going to blow up Tiamat, kind of like what God told Moses. You need to get yourself ready, get on an ark. No, in this case, get on an ark. It was already built. Kingu was already there. It was displaced and came to where it is now, as it became the Earth. And then Venus got displaced, another moon that got displaced, and went by and cut the Grand Canyon. As it got close enough, the distance in between with the ether and space could not insulate. And so just like a static charge, when you go across a carpet and you go to reach a doorknob or a light switch, you'll get a spark. That's the spark. The first hit was the huge crater that's outside Flagstaff. And the guy that bought that thought he'd get the big, huge iron meteorite that's in the middle. There is no iron meteorite. It was a first strike charge. And then it just constantly arced. And it cut the entire Grand Canyon in 3 days. That's why, all of the big river systems of the world, and the Colorado River then fell into that. It just used to meander across the plains, and waters will ground stuff out. So it grounded out and vaporized the Colorado River during that 3-day pass. And of course, it'll refill, but it cut the Grand Canyon a new path for the Colorado River. It arced and filled cut the path it was in, but it hadn't started cutting the Grand Canyon at all because the Earth hadn't been sitting in this orbit that long yet. And so if you look at the Mississippi River or the Nile or any of these, the Missouri, any of these huge rivers emptying out into an ocean, you'll see a huge river delta that goes way out into the ocean of all the debris that they're cutting as they erode. You don't see that. The Grand Canyon, the Colorado River enters into, and it empties out into the Gulf of California, you see there. That's where it drains out to finally. There's no sediment there. That is, in fact, so rocky that the humpback whales that go from Hawaiian Islands all the way up to Alaska to breed up there every year, when they go through, they go into the Gulf of California to scrape the barnacles off by rubbing on the hard rock that's on the bottom of the Gulf of California. There's not a massive amount of debris in there. if you were to say the amount of debris that was in the Grand Canyon, that would fill up the Gulf of California, that amount of debris. There wouldn't be a Gulf of California, yet it's pretty much just rock down there. So that Grand Canyon was completely cut, and the waters were much higher. We're in a kind of a low-level water time frame on Earth. A lot of it's locked up in ice. We're actually not in a warm period. We're in a cool period. We're in a cooling period. The whole thing with climate, with their change, talking about climate change and all that, yeah, not due to humanity, though. And it's actually a solar minimum. So that means we're cooling. And the carbon dioxide levels are actually nearly the lowest they've ever been outside an ice age. When it gets really low, you go into an ice age because the plants can't keep the planet warm. They're like a blanket over the Earth. The Earth is actually slightly starting to, as carbon dioxide goes above a certain level, it starts to create cooling. It's a very complicated interrelationship between that and water vapor, clouds, etc., and methane gases and nitrous gases and all kinds of things interrelate. It's so complicated. There's no computer model that could possibly. So now that view right there, you can really see how that's an electrical arc. If you look at how rivers usually cut, it doesn't look like that. You look at the Nile, you look at the Amazon, you look at the Missouri, you look at the Tiber, you look at any massive rivers, even the really rough ones, like some of them up in Tibet and things like that. They don't look like that. That is unique. It doesn't have a delta. And the amount of debris removed allowed for peoples from all over the world for thousands of years to come, including the Moors. During the time of the Egyptians, the Moors came in as well, and they built artifacts and all kinds of things on the Grand Canyon. Decode will be doing on deep dives. I've got a whole lot of information. If you can let me share real quick here, Taino.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
You'll have to unshare so I can share.
All right. All right, go ahead.
So you see my screen?
Yep.
So this is what we're currently working on for the deep dives, trying to get it up for this month, and done by one of the Blessed for Service coordinator, Bryn Blade. Really a massive amount of information, and going into Professor Jordan and Kincaid's caves and tunnel system, and the research denied by the Smithsonian. There's a lie and a cover-up of human history. Like we've never heard of that one before. This person was given a back tour of the Smithsonian in DC. And there are additionally, as stated, 14 secret warehouses scattered throughout the US because the amount of material can't fit underneath the Smithsonian, even with its space folded. Over 300,000 hybrid species, 250,000 glass bottles of containing dead hybrids, 350,000 square feet of cloning laboratories. The Smithsonian was involved there. Huh. Wow. So they have been squirreling away like squirrels getting ready for the winter forever since the 1800s through the 1930s, the First Nations peoples and all kinds of things from the Grand Canyon. So in the Grand Canyon, you have so many things, and it's fascinating to learn how the Grand Canyon, was originally home to so many different peoples all over the world. And what's really fascinating is how first there's a mining. You can't mine or dredge the Grand Canyon. The amount of gold would have collapsed the Federal Reserve when it was being formed. John Wesley Powell found the amount of gold down there was beyond comprehension. And so, they have many tunnels and many cave systems and all kinds of artifacts from the Moors, the Egyptians in the Grand Canyon. That's in the Grand Canyon. I mean, you look what's been found there, that they're hiding on display the Smithsonian in DC that actually came from the Grand Canyon. So you can see Powell, talking and getting guides and tours of things. And a Mayan pyramid, mostly buried, but there's the entrance. And near the Mayan pyramid is where the Moors were as well. So there's all kinds of pyramids and all kinds of things in the Grand Canyon. And fascinating to learn is that all of the names of things in the Grand Canyon are Egyptian names, and like Zoroaster's pyramid and Isis pyramid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's all kinds of things being hidden from us by the Smithsonian from all over, from the First Nations people, the Canadian people's First Nations, the US people's First Nations. It's tying into, and of course the cabal's trying to use that as a narrative that they need to break apart Russia and make it back into little tiny countries, because it's not the Russian timber or the Russian uranium, it's these groups that first lived there. How far do you want to take that? Let's take that narrative to this continent. Let's break the US back up into 500 nations. It's not the US's material or Canada's material. It's the Ojibwe, it's the Cherokee, it's the Montauk.